Good evening, all, and welcome to another edition of Wake Up America, Wake Up. Tonight, I want to go over the events that transpired in the city of Chicago, the South Loop, Michigan Avenue, and Millennium Park, and the downtown business district. A crisis that, quite frankly, we would expect to read about in the third world countries around the world.
We were just downtown in Chicago.
But facing the state of Illinois, Chicago streets, forget the fact that Chicago's crime wave is out of control, that defunding the police is strongly supported by the Democratic mayors. Mayors like Lori Lightfoot, who is the outgoing mayor, thank God. But unfortunately, the mayor-elect, Brandon Johnson, is no better. Both of these mayors are ignoring the facts, or the black-on-black crime that is resulting in the deaths of Chicago youths. Nope, that's not important. The real crisis is starvation and opportunities, according to them.
Mayor-elect Johnson called the activity, quote, unacceptable, and went on to say, quote, it is not constructive to demonize youth who have otherwise been starved of opportunities in their own community.
The city of Chicago's outgoing mayor, Lori Lightfoot, who I lovingly called the dog-faced gremlin, and mayor-elect Brandon Johnson are reading from the same playbook. You know,
please disperse. Nothing to see here, please.
And I'm not trying to make light of the situation, but it's true. It sounds like they're saying, please disperse. Nothing to see here, please. Their understanding is the teen takeover last weekend was nothing more than teenagers venting their frustrations over starvation and opportunities. Makes sense. Chiraq is a city that is facing a food crisis, full-blown starvation, and employment opportunities for these starving well-dressed children, which legitimizes the reason for this rampage that they caused last weekend. Definitely. So we shouldn't demonize these well-dressed starving children who have no opportunities. I mean, the starvation in Chicago is so bad that they broke into the Art Institute, they vandalized it looking for food at the Art Institute. I mean, they have a full buffet. That's why they broke in there. And let's not forget the bus that they stopped. They must have confused it with a food truck as they jumped up and down after pouncing on it. Or maybe, what about the tourists, right? Maybe they confused the tourists as food salesmen and attacked them. There was a lot of confusion by these starving, young, well-dressed youths that have no opportunities. Of course not. Residents in Chicago will be very, very upset because the police couldn't do nothing. I mean, you had cars that were dragging in the street doing Swifts. Obviously, the media doesn't want to portray these teenagers as monsters. You know, they don't want, hey, like Brandon Johnson said, right? Let's not demonize them.
Look, demonizing children is wrong. They're young. Sometimes they make silly decisions. They do. And so we have to make sure that we are investing to make sure that young people know that they are supported.
Okay, they're misunderstood. Sure, they're misunderstood, and I'll tell you why. Because their parents are not paying attention to them. Maybe they have parents that are working 2 jobs. And then they become latchkey kids. Maybe the education system, which is teaching them critical race theory, maybe that's the reason why they're acting out like this. It's a lot of things, folks. The fact is, All these starving teenagers, right, who stopped cars, assaulted tourists, set cars on fires, and attacked city residents were in search of food and opportunities. Opportunity and food resources, again, that could be found at the Art Institute, that could be found in cars that were parked in the street, that could be found on buses, that could be found in the downtown district area, that could be found in the park. Do you get where I'm going, folks? That narrative just doesn't hold water. However, this is nothing new for the residents of Chicago. I hate to say it. Because if you recall, under Lori Lightfoot, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, in 2021 and 2022, similar incidents occurred in the city under her watch. A lot of looting took place in those years that I mentioned. Look, these large groups of young adults have looted the city, have basically embarrassed themselves within the United States and around the world. Because nowadays, what happens in the United States is magnified to every other country. Because the truth is, if we were a democracy, we wouldn't be defunding the police. If we were a democracy, we wouldn't have corrupt officials as mayors, as governors, as politicians. But unfortunately, Chicago has a history of corruption. Chicago has always been made famous, a sort of Pirates of the Caribbean of this city. Because, you know, if you think of Al Capone, if you think of the 1920s, Prohibition, Machine Gun Kelly, I'm not talking about the that stupid rapper or music pop artist. No, I'm not talking about him. Chiraq is the third world country of the United States, and it's located in the state of Illinois. And if that doesn't annoy you, then it should. And then you have people, social justice warriors, right? From the BLM, Ariel Atkins.
If somebody decides to loot a Gucci or a Macy's or a Nike, because that makes sure that that person eats. That makes sure that that person has clothes. That's reparations. That is reparations. Anything they want to take it, because anything they want to take it, because these businesses have insurance. They're going to get their money back. My people aren't getting anything.
I don't know if it was an interview, I don't know what it was, but she was on camera and it was televised that she was okay with the youth looting, stealing from Gucci, stealing from this other store. It's okay because they're insured. So in other words, you know, go get yours because the insurance is going to take care of that. That is not the society that we want to live in. And if people are following people like Ariel Atkins, who's not even admonishing this. I mean, Black Lives Matter, what have they done for the black community in Chicago? Except enrich themselves off of the misery of black on black crimes. Promoting racism, saying that it's the white man's fault. It's not the white man's fault. It is the fault of people like Ariel Atkins of BLM. It is the fault of mayors like Lori Lightfoot. And the list goes on. But the residents of Chicago also have to take and accept part. They have to take responsibility as well. Because your vote puts these criminals, these corrupt politicians, into office. And being quiet when you have people like Ariel Atkins of BLM promoting racism and you don't say nothing about it, that doesn't help. Okay, that only furthers the division in our country. But hey, not to worry, because, you know, soft on crime DAs like Kim Foxx, they're laughing all the way to the bank. Especially knowing that George Soros, right, is the one who is the benefactor, who has put money into PACs to put these soft on crime DAs so that Chicago can become a shithole, that residents don't feel safe, that tourists will not go to. So parents, the only thing I can ask you to do is be parents. If your children are out there after curfew, then there's something wrong. And I get it, hey, there's probably, it might be true that Chicago does not have enough programs, right, for the youth. And I get that. But why don't you think about this? Maybe that money is better spent, right, on building a center for Barack Obama in his honor, right? He said, well, I'm giving back to Chicago, right? But yet it is not his money that is building the center. Money better spent on programs for the youth, but are being spent on this ex-president, a jackass, who did nothing for the black community.
This day has been a long time coming. We are about to break ground on what will be the world's premier institution for developing civic leaders across fields, across disciplines, and yes, across the political spectrum.
The substantial investment in the South Side will help make the neighborhood where we call home a destination for the entire world.
And so his contribution to the city of Chicago is to build a center dedicated to him. The expectation is that this teen takeover may happen again. And my concern is that if it does happen again, lives will be lost. Teenagers will be shot. 2 teenagers were shot last week. Not fatally, but they were shot and taken to the hospital. Thank goodness that the police, which are well trained, but underfunded and undermanned, were able to avoid fatalities. However, their hands are tied, folks. And as residents of Chicago, you need to put trust back into your Chicago Police Department and not defund them. Hey, I get it. There are some bad apples, but there are bad apples all over the world. There are bad apples in the government. There are bad apples everywhere. But you can't weed them out by defunding those people, those police officers, men and women, that are sacrificing their time and their lives to protect you. So with that said, wake up, America. Wake up. Please like, please comment, please subscribe, please share. And thank you for your time, folks.